Welcome to Labadee, a place of white sand beaches, clear blue waters, rum cocktails, and pure vacation bliss. Wishing you could be there right now, huh? You know who else would? The locals. Yes, while news coverage of Haiti is more often than not quite bleak, what's hardly mentioned is that on its northern coast lies a little utopia. Since 1986, Labadee TM has been leased by Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines and promoted as an endless adventure with pristine sands, coral reefs, and jungle-covered hilltops nestling lagoon-like bays. What's not being mentioned, however, is that this tropical slice of heaven is completely closed off to locals. Literally. A large barbed wire fence and guards with guns make sure that Labadee remains the wonderland it claims to be. Inside, everything from the food to the name has been westernized and simplified for comfort. No, don't think about how Labadee is named after an enslaver, sip imported juice instead. So while the outside grapples with the ravages of natural disasters, poverty, and political instability, Labadee touts a tropical paradise. There is beauty in Haiti. It just isn't accessible to Haitians. But how did we get here? Let's talk about it. With renewed interest in the inaccessibility of Jamaica's coastline, I thought it was about time we also turn our attention to Haiti's largest tourist attraction, Labadee. Also, apologies in advance, I'll probably oscillate between the pronunciation Haiti and Haiti. I grew up saying Haiti, and so it sounds more natural to me, but I know that in English it's Haiti. So yeah, I'll try to keep that in mind as we move along in this video.
This is Royal Caribbean's private island here in Haiti. It's actually attached to land, but it's all private just for Royal Caribbean guests.
Several days a week, a towering cruise ship docks at the 105-hectare private resort, and thousands descend on its white sand beaches, cabanas, shops, and flashy attractions. Over here, you've got the world's longest zip line over water. Over there, an inflatable water playground. And if you're feeling a little more adventurous, check out the artisans market and immerse yourself in the only nod made to Haitian culture. But don't wander too far off, not that you could anyways. We don't want this magical mirage to become undone. See, 500,000 tourists stop in Labadee each year, making it Haiti's biggest tourist draw.
Cruise ships start coming here about 25 years, so most people in the village depending by the cruise ship, as you can see.
But when they all retreat to their ship after a long day of relaxation, the local staff head back to their own version of Labadee, one that is a far cry away from the fun, beauty, and excess contained within the resort's 3-meter walls. As one local says, there are two Labadees, one for the rich, the foreigners, and the other for the rest of us. Labadee seems to be in a Disney-esque world of its own, really an entity completely detached from the rest of the country. This was made quite evident when, after the 2010 earthquake devastated Port-au-Prince, Haiti's capital city, cruise ships continued to dock in Labadee. And today, although violent groups have forced more than 1 million people from their homes and more than 35% of the population lives on less than $2, in Labadee there is clean water, electricity, fun, and abundance. Really, compared to the rest of the country, Labadee seems to be thriving. But to understand how that is and why Haiti has been embroiled in turmoil for so long, it's important to understand the country's history. The history we know, at least, begins when Columbus, quote-unquote, discovered the island in 1492. He called it La Isla Española, now known as Hispaniola in English, and set up a colony. Long story short, the indigenous people, called Tainos, were practically wiped out, and thousands of Africans were forcibly removed from their homes and shipped in to build the wealthiest colony in the world. Though, of course, that wealth did not trickle down to the enslaved. Now, the conditions were far too atrocious and far too wide for me to make mention of it all in this video, but ultimately the enslaved rebelled in 1791 in what would come to be known as the Haitian Revolution and founded the world's first Black republic. Haiti was actually the first nation to permanently ban slavery, but daring to go against their oppressor had consequences. A Black-led nation simply couldn't be put on the same standing as its white-led counterparts. No, that threatened the world order, so when Haiti won its independence, it was immediately made a pariah state. The United States immediately worked to isolate it economically, and France, almost literally at gunpoint, demanded that Haiti pay an exorbitant indemnity fee for lost property, in this case the slaves, to get diplomatic recognition. The amount was so exorbitant, in fact, that Haiti had to take out loans with high interest rates, of course, from a French bank, and it took the country 122 years to pay it off. So from 1825 to 1947, Haiti paid French enslavers and their descendants the equivalent of roughly $25 billion in today's money. Yes, Haiti was forced to pay its oppressor reparations. And the United States' violent occupation of Haiti for 19 years in the early 20th century further damaged the country's progress. Not to mention that even while the US officially left Haiti in 1934, it continued controlling its public finances until 1947. So although Haiti is today one of the poorest nations in the world, that's been by design. And it's amidst all that turmoil that Royal Caribbean saw a business opportunity. As did then President Jean-Claude Baby Doc Duvalier, it seems, because in 1985 he personally signed a deal with Royal Caribbean. The deal in question was for a 64-year lease on a 25-hectare peninsula in northern Haiti. And so in 1986, Labadee opened with little to no competition and became Haiti's most popular tourist attraction. The original name, Labadee, which itself was derived from French enslaver Marquis de Labadee, was simplified for Western tongues, and the cruise line started marketing it as the ultimate private beach. In fact, up until the 2010s, tourists didn't even realize that the private beach they were visiting was in Haiti. See, throughout the 90s, the cruise line avoided all mentions of Haiti and instead marketed the destination as Hispaniola. When they were called on it, they put a little Haiti here and there, but kept mystifying Labadee as a private and secret destination. A quote from a tourist in 2006 reads, "I thought we were coming to a place called Hispaniola, but I guess it doesn't matter. So it's Haiti." Up till then, the cruise line really didn't go out of its way to clear up any confusion about the location of its private beach. And I guess that worked for them, because in 2009, Royal Caribbean made $55 million worth of improvements to their facilities, and their lease was extended to 2050. But cruise companies buying land to build exclusive private retreats really isn't new. Since 2019, cruise lines have spent at least $1.5 billion buying or leasing land in the Caribbean, and companies like these have amassed some 15 islands and beaches totaling 5,200 acres across the Bahamas, Belize, Mexico, Dominican Republic, and Haiti. However, while the promises behind all these investments are jobs and education grants, the reality seems to be quite different. Well, there's no denying that cruise lines bring an influx of money wherever they build. That also comes with a side of pollution and already ecologically fragile environments and the removal of public access to beaches. This can be seen with Labadee, of course, where a small poll showed that locals had never or didn't know how to access the resort, and it can also be seen with Jamaica, where local campaign groups say that only 1% of Jamaica's population has access to its coastline. As Dr. Devin Taylor, founder of Jamaica Beach Birthright Environmental Movement, says, quote, "Jamaicans who for generations could just walk across the road and into the sea can't do it anymore. You may not even see a Black Jamaican in the sea. You may have a server, someone who will care for your room, and at the end of the day, when they work their 8 hours, they can't take off their clothes and go swim in the sea to relax. They have to walk through that gate and leave." But the blame doesn't lie squarely with cruise ships or private resorts. They wouldn't be building on these lands if the lands hadn't been sold. The privatization of beaches and sale of assets to foreign corporations has become quite normalized throughout the Caribbean because, well, the governments selling those assets benefit from it. For example, Royal Caribbean pays a $10 tax per person to the local Haitian government. And what with them bringing in more than 500,000 tourists each year, that's a lot of moolah. And I assume we're talking big, heavy bucks because Royal Caribbean has continued operating in Labadee through political turmoil, dictatorships, earthquakes, and violence. Well, it did pause trips to Labadee for 7 months in 2024 because of State Department warnings and, well, optics, but those optics didn't seem to matter all that much because in October 2024, it quietly put Labadee back on its itineraries and has stopped there regularly since then. And today, while armed gangs control about 85% of Port-au-Prince and 59% of Haitians live under the national poverty line, Royal Caribbean Cruises keeps on cruising the Labadee. Now, it is easy to side-eye Labadee and turn your nose up at what could really be defined as a tourist prison, but as with most things, the reality is a bit more nuanced.
When they spend their money economically, it's good for the village and good for the country. The tourists stop coming to the country, that means all the country is lost.
As a Haitian travel operator said, quote, "Aid has not aided Haiti. Haiti needs activity and Haiti needs jobs, and I believe that the right kind of tourism can bring that." It's important to note that since 2001, there have been more than 50 natural disasters that have devastated Haiti, and although it's received billions in foreign aid, suffice to say that the aid industry in Haiti has been, quote, "misguided at best and outrageously corrupt at worst." For example, a 2015 ProPublica investigation found that although Red Cross raised $500 million after Haiti's 2010 earthquake, it constructed just 6 houses. So when you've got a cruise line bringing in millions of visitors and beaucoup bucks, you're not gonna turn it away, right? Royal Caribbean is one of Haiti's largest investors. It employs 200 locals from the nearby village of Labadee and allows another 300 to sell their merchandise on the premises. The cruise line states that its workers earn well above the national average, and in 2010, it built a new school that incidentally bears its name and brought running water to the village of Labadee. But is it enough? Everything in Labadee is owned and operated by Royal Caribbean. We're talking restaurants, concession stands, and most payments are made with room keys or cruise cards. No cash. Not only does this mean no tip for employees, but it also means that all earnings go directly into the hands of the company and not the locals. As sociologist Ross Klein has said, quote, "Unlike other port calls on a private island or in a private port like Labadee, the revenues and profits remain largely with the cruise line. So while it's quite profitable to the cruise line, the benefit to the local economy is relatively small and very limited." It all feels a tad bit exploitative, and I'm not the only one saying it. Cruise lines have been accused of exploiting poorer economies to maximize their profits. In fact, critics have said that a non-privatized port could be far more beneficial for both the local community and the country. And beyond the economics of it all, most tourists don't know or see how real Haitians live. Nor do they know that they're in Haiti. But as a former cruise employee said, quote, "Tourists don't really understand Haiti because what they see in the news or before buying their ticket isn't the same as what's really here."
The tourists misunderstand about Haiti because whatever they see in the news or before they buy a ticket, it's not what they see when they get here.
There is poverty and pain in Haiti, but just like anywhere else, there is also beauty, culture, and community. Companies like Royal Caribbean do bring in valuable tourism revenue to Haiti, but not only do the locals seem to be getting just a fraction of that revenue, the tourism in itself doesn't seem to be centered around Haiti's cultural beauty. Of course, the situation isn't all black and white. The country is still plagued by decades of economic insecurity, corruption, violence, and natural disasters, so tourism dollars are a welcome reprieve. But is Royal Caribbean really the best option? I'm not gonna claim to have the answer, but I'd say that it doesn't include the exclusion of locals from their own land.
The focus in Haiti has to be on the disadvantaged people. They're the ones that make the country go or make the country stop.
Most Haitians don't even know what Labadee looks like. They can only dream it. That only tourists have access to or fully benefit from a place purposely put out of reach to locals doesn't sit right with me, nor should it. What's that saying? Oh right, one beach for me, but not for thee. And that's all for now, folks. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and give a big ol' thumbs up. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.